right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to this month's edition of Office Hours. Oh, this is part of my Patreon series. I have an artist mentorship program where I do one-on-one coaching, and every month we have an Office Hours. Sometimes I have guests. This month, I'm happy to have Mikey Lyon as my Office Hours guest. Mikey Lyon, I'm sure all of you know who he is, but he's a DJ, music producer, record label head, and he runs a little festival called Desert Hearts over the last 10 years, which I'm sure you've heard of. My personal relationship with Mikey, I think it started at Desert Hearts. I played the first time at the 1 year anniversary many years ago, 9 years ago, and they've been gracious enough to invite me back every year since. And this festival to me is, and to many people, is just very, very personally special. It's artistically special, really, really great vibe, and just a great gift to the rest of the world and to the community. So, Mikey, thanks for being here. Really happy to have you.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Atish. Yeah, it's crazy that we've been doing this for 9 years together now.
Man, it's nuts. And yeah, it's just been great watching you guys grow and adapt and change with everything. Um, so yeah, just as we talked about a little bit before, this next hour, we can go in any direction we want to take it, but primarily the audience is people in the industry or people who are trying to get their feet wet in the industry. So once again, appreciate your time, and throughout this series, a lot of people have found it really valuable, trying to figure out how to navigate this whole crazy world of dance music.
Yeah, I love it. I love that you're doing these and that you've kind of taken on this mentor role to so many people. It's a really cool and valuable area of expertise that you're able to give up. So I love being part of these things. Justin Jay's got a similar Discord where he's really active and helps. He's got a whole bunch of producers that he's mentoring, and I've done ones for him before. And so, yeah, I'm like, these always get me really pumped. Like, these are cool.
Awesome, man. Well, appreciate it. And on a personal note, I started doing this, when the pandemic started, and I said, let me try this thing out. Let me do some coaching, mentoring, and make some money on the side where I'm not getting gigs. And then I'm like, wow, this is adding a whole new level of fulfillment to my music career that I didn't even know could possibly exist. And yeah, it's just very, very personally rewarding.
Yeah, I love
So,
that.
let's just jump right into it. I think the biggest thing on my mind is the fact that you just had the 10-year anniversary festival just a couple weeks ago. And I want to start by asking you, how do you evaluate, well, how did you feel about it, both from an emotional point of view and from an analytical point of view? How do you measure how good a certain festival was outside of ticket sales?
Whew. Man, this festival was like the most crazy, overwhelming endeavor that we've ever done, especially after having a 3 year break due to COVID. As we we're ramping up, we we're 1 month out from our 2020 festival when everything shut down. And then the vaccine didn't really get rolled out until, spring of 2021. And so we were kind of right on the cusp getting shut down again for a second year in a row. And so during that time, the Indian reservation that we've been throwing our festival at for the last 6 years or so, they got just like totally fucked up by COVID. And their whole organization got pretty much decimated. And so they didn't even have the infrastructure to have us back. And so we were faced with finding a new venue that would allow us to keep the similar vision of Desert Hearts. And our whole thing has always been 72 hours of nonstop music, from Friday at noon till Monday at noon. And finding a venue that would allow us to keep that vision without sacrificing too much was like insane. So the fact that we found Lake Paris, it was like pulling a rabbit out of a hat, because we checked everywhere and talked to everyone. Everyone kind of had the similar notion that there's no such venues around that can do this. And there was a big festival that happened that was supposed to happen called One Tribe, and it was supposed to happen at Lake Paris. It was part of like this guy Brett Ballou. and he used to be this huge promoter, like a big competitor to Insomniac in the early 2000s. And he had the backing of SXM during the time when they were, I don't know if you remember, they were like that. They were trying to be like the global dance music brand before, I think, Tomorrowland like basically decimated and crushed their whole business. But that guy, Brett Ballou, told me, he's like, look, it's not going to be easy to do something there. If you are able to make it work, there's no better venue than Lake Paris. And so we went from having zero red tape at doing it at Los Coyotes for the last 6 years. And before, we pretty much never had to do any kind of permitting process for Desert Hearts, to having like maximum red tape at a state park. Our fire marshal walkthrough was like 16 hours long on Wednesday. Like the gnarliest, craziest day ever for our site leads. And so we got through all that. Everything was just like, holy shit, it's on. And then it was like, okay, the first night's up. Like, are we going to get a sound complaint in the middle of the night? So me and Marbs were literally like driving all around the entire neighborhoods around there, and like you could kind of hear it faintly, but not enough to get any noise complaints whatsoever. So we're like, all right, we made it through. And then the first year that we ever had 2 stages, where one was playing on, we had the beach during the day and then the main stage at night. So like we were trying a lot of new things at this festival that we'd never done before. But man, like the overwhelming response, like 99% of it was all like radiating positive.
Definitely.
And for us is like the biggest relief ever that our family felt good about it, and the whole community was down for it. And like, all right, our future and our runway just got like infinitely longer.
Yeah.
And I'm about to have a kid in 3 months. So like, if this festival didn't go good, like I would be in a fucking whirlwind right now.
Totally. So it seems like there's kinds of rings of success. 1, can the festival happen? 2, can you get your permits? 3, can the sound run the entire time? And then 4, in the Maslow's hierarchy of dance music success, pulsing the community and your friends and this kind of thing. How do you, after I produce an event, I'll like read the Facebook comments and I'll like try to talk to people, and I find sometimes it's hard to dissect, like the honest feedback, versus the, this kind of thing. Like, how do you actually, kind of separate or feel like you have a truly accurate picture of not just the everyone just kind of beaming, but like really digging down and figuring out what are the things that we need to fix? Like, what can be better? What's more than people enjoying the music and being high and this kind of thing? Like, how do you drill down on the minute things that need to be improved?
Yeah. There was like our Reddit community, Reddit threads. There's like the unofficial Desert Hearts Facebook group. And you find more on Facebook. Like everyone's got an opinion on Facebook. That's where they like need to share it.
I saw you comment on one of those.
Oh yeah! Oh my god! I can't even get started on that one. That like made me so mad. That was like a personal versus second. But yeah, like I think there's a combination, right? Because you want to dig deep and see what people are really saying, which is Facebook, the places where people have like dissenting opinions. But if you like only read those, then you're going to not feel good about your event, and you're going to miss all the glowing, insane things that happened out there that people absolutely loved. I found that looking at that, and then also looking at the hashtag Desert Hearts on Instagram, it was like 99% positive when you compare the two. But the people that were commenting on Facebook had a lot of very valid points. It was our first year. There are a lot of kinks that we need to work out and that we're going to for next year. And we're going to take all that into consideration. It's important to look at everything and not get caught up, because everyone knows it's like, for even on, say you play a set and then the next day you're looking at your Instagram and there's like 100 glowing comments, and then there's like one like, that was the worst fucking set I've ever seen, and then that's the one that you can focus, that you always
totally.
And so it's hard. It's hard, but you just have to kind of keep pushing through them.
Absolutely. And it's I've never thrown a festival before, but over the years as I've been doing this, obviously I love positive feedback. I love people telling me stuff is awesome, but when there's a lot of positive feedback, for me, I don't know if you can relate to this, then like I kind of go into this like self-doubt thing, which is like, is everyone just like buttering my ass or telling me what I want to hear, or afraid to give it? Then I'll like seek out that negative feedback because, and then, or even if it's like feedback on a track, like I'll skip all the positive stuff and I'll just go straight to the negative. Like, how can I improve? Like, this kind of thing. And it's probably not healthy, but those things can get amplified. Like, as you said, that 1% of the critical feedback, which is important, can take up a much bigger percentage of the mind space than what the actual pulse of how people might actually feel is.
Yeah, and it's that opinion distortion, right? It's that it's taking that one negative thing and amplifying it, when in reality, so many other people loved what you just did. And yeah, sometimes it's just like, I don't know what, I think when you get to a certain size in this industry, as far as your popularity and everything, everyone's going to start having opinions. And we're getting memed now. Desert Hearts is getting like shit talked on, and like, I know what we're doing is one of the most beautiful things in this industry, is just as far as creating community and spreading positivity. But there's a lot of people that don't feel that in their daily life, that are like, oh, well, I need to bring them down to where I am. And so, I think you just have to truly believe in what you're doing, and that's going to get you through all it.
Absolutely. On that note, talking about size and growth, in many facets of the world, whether it's business, startups, music scenes, art scenes, what have you, it's very, as organizations scale, it's very hard for the organizations to retain that culture that they had. Things were always better things were always better yesterday, this kind of thing. Or when we were small, it always had this vibe, this kind of thing. My personal experience this year was that it still had, for the time that I was there, it still had that vibe. It still felt real. It still had that culture. How have you walked that line between, I'm sure you guys must be conscious of this, like as you grow, as you get bigger, can you hold on to the culture? How do you walk that line between expansion and retaining culture, and what compromises have you had to make?
Yeah, that's probably the hardest part of this industry and of throwing parties and festivals, is how do you walk that line? It's like the finest line ever of selling out and being successful with the money that you're making and the business side of things, and then also keeping true to what made this the best thing ever. And so for us, one of the things that Desert Hearts has always been known to have just a wild, totally hedonistic vibe, very, very counterculture, do whatever you want type vibe. And as we're going into this new space, there's like these certain things that we have to figure out, right? So one of them is to make it successful, it's like we have to sell a certain amount of tickets, because this new venue costs so much more. Like the amount that this venue, it was like this party cost like 2.5 times what our 2019 party cost. Oh, wow. And we only had like 500 more tickets sold than we did the time before. And so we're like, okay, we are really relying on the bar to make a bunch of money to like break even on this thing. And we've also never sold alcohol at Desert Hearts before. It's always been very free for all, bring in whatever you want. And so this year we were like, okay, everyone can still bring in all of their alcohol. You can still, like very, very lax on everything coming in as far as going through like the little security line. And our bar fucking tanked.
Oh.
It's like we were so relying on that, and then we're just like, okay, this hurts pretty bad. We're gonna have to like figure out how to navigate that, where like it can't necessarily be that free for all that we've had in the past, just because like if it keeps going that way, like our longevity, we're going to cease to exist. And it's hard for a lot of people to grasp that. No party goer has any idea what goes into throwing a party and all of the different hoops you have to jump through to make stuff happen, and the different sacrifices. Also with this new venue, just like the overall layout was so much bigger. Just all of our campsites were a lot farther away than normal, and with that, like there wasn't as many people hanging out in the campsites. Normally at Los Coyotes, there's like this, I don't know, you could go anywhere and find your friends really easily, where like the space at this one was a lot bigger, and so it's a little bit harder to find your friends.
Would you see having to sell more tickets, having to have more people through the door, would you see that as a compromise? Or is that, let me rephrase the question as, the ideal Desert Hearts, let's say money wasn't an object, would it be the size it was at the Indian reservation, or would it be like a 10,000 person thing? What do you visualize as the ideal size?
Man, I like the 5,000 sweet spot as like the ideal size.
What was the Indian reservation size?
It was right about that.
Okay.
It was right about 5,000. And that was like total people in, including all of our contributors and artists and creators. But like with the amount of inflation, with people having not worked for multiple years, like our budget and cost of labor, cost of wood, cost of fucking everything is just like astronomical now. And I don't even know how we could do a 5,000 person festival on that budget that we did that in 2019. It's like not possible. And even going from like 2016 to 2019 at Los Coyotes, we had similar amount of people that were coming in, and every year we were like making less and less and less and less money every year, which is then like our employees all started having to take a hit during the year, and it's really hectic. It's super stressful when you have so many employees on the line and having to navigate that. So, I mean, it's inevitable at this point that Desert Hearts is going to have to keep growing. And we're just trying to figure out how to make that the best possible, grow in the best possible way that keeps all of our ethos still the same.
Sure. So let's jump into a little bit outside Desert Hearts for a bit and just talk about the music industry at large. If you had to, give the state of the union from Mikey Lyon's perspective on where the dance music industry is today, what's your overall feeling on how things are? And relatedly, how would you say the dance music industry of today compares to 2019?
I think we're kind of in like an oversaturated slump a little bit right now.
100%.
And we really saw that towards the end of 2021, because basically what you had right when the pandemic was ending and when things were opening back up, you had like all these promoters that were doing the underground parties during the pandemic. All of them were like just kind of doing their thing and doing it all under the table. And then all those promoters kept going when everything opened back up. Meanwhile, you have like every promoter ever is now like the most thirsty to throw parties of all time that they've ever been after having a year and a half off. So all those people all at once just like went all out I want to say like April or May 2021. And for, I don't know, it felt like 5 or 6 months. It was like, go, 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 go. And everyone was throwing parties and it was fucking amazing. It was really great. Some of those parties were the best parties that I can remember. And like 6 months into that, I think everyone kind of just got like a little bit worn out, and COVID started rearing its head. And yeah, like we toured nonstop from like April 2021 till December, and then took like 3 months off more or less of just kind of letting things chill. COVID was rearing back up. And now I think like it's just super saturated right now. It's a tough game to get into if you're not like all the way in. Yeah. And by all the way in, I mean, you need to be producing music. You need to be having a DJ mix series, like literally a content creator, TikTok, fucking video editor, podcaster. It's insane. It's insane to stand out from everyone else. You need to be doing something pretty substantial.
Definitely. And you touched on kind of what I want to spend a lot of time focusing on, but we'll put a pin in that. But that's, what I've been seeing. I kind of took a break in 2021. My son was born and all this, so I didn't get to enjoy that wave. But just the last 6 months for me, I talked about this on social media a little bit, and Desert Hearts broke my slump, but it was like turnouts weren't that great. And, every city I would play, they say, smaller market cities, they say, well, there's another big event going on. People went out last night, they're tired from the weekend, their stimulus checks, kind of ran out. So like, the dance floors were, half full, which I'm okay with. Some of the best parties I've played have been for half full dance floors, but I've also seen that there would be like the Atish fans. Anyone of you out there, I appreciate you coming out. That would be like half the contingency. Then the other half of the contingency would be like this new set of people that I haven't really seen this vibe on the dance floor before, and they would just get bored really quickly, or they would go home really quickly, or they would have their drinks, or maybe they don't have their party legs from the way they had it 2019. And I've felt this really weird feeling on dance floors like the last 6 months, and I think people are tired or sick or broke or something. Curious in the chat. Oh, as a note, anyone in the chat, you're welcome to throw in questions, and we'll get to them in the end. But yeah, it's just been this weird thing that's going on, and I want to come back to the full package. But actually, I'm going to use this as a segue into. This was something that was very hard for me to deal with outwardly, let's say on social media. And I would have talks with my manager. I have this long post about, where I think the industry is, and I'm not feeling the gigs. And he's like, well, yeah, maybe you shouldn't say this, because if you're not having good gigs, the other promoters will think it's a bad look and they won't want to book you. What's your take on this? I enjoy reading your social media posts, whether it's funny or serious or heartfelt. How do you manage your relationship with social media? How much you share? And, what line is oversharing or maybe, doing yourself a disservice kind of thing?
Also, I think it really depends on your brand.
Mm-hmm.
my whole brand with Desert Hearts is trying to create the most positivity in the world as possible, and by like I'm trying to lead by example on how to I want to show people how to have the best life that they can have, because I thoroughly enjoy my life and this life that I've been given, and so I share a lot. I'm really open about my problems with just mental health, sobriety, just like you were saying, when you have those bad gigs, like those are fucking huge ego checks every time. You know, like you're like, God damn, dude, like last year I fucking was crushing, and then now this room is half full, and those feel shitty every time, and you're like, man, I just like can't wait for the fucking next time when it's like packed and people are like ripping it. So I think it just depends. It depends like what your brand is, in my opinion. I share a lot because I'm trying to help people ultimately. Like my goal as a DJ is just to try to be the most effective healer that I can with my vibe and with the energy that I'm putting out there. Other people are like selling the party, you know? I don't think that, take for instance, John Summit could like, I don't think his brand would be to like share this like super emotional thing about what is his like struggles with alcoholism or something like that. I don't know if he has anything like that, but like his entire vibe is like he's the party guy, and everyone goes to his gigs because they want to party. It just depends, you know. Something that you were saying just about kind of the state of the industry that was like the biggest eye opener to me, just in music in general, is when I was watching the Coachella live streams. It'd be like the main stage, and they would fucking finish their like biggest hit song, and there would be like 5 seconds of the crowd going like, woo. And then it's like, and then it was like dead. Like back when I was fucking going to Coachella, like in 2007, like after Rage Against the Machine happened, like the fucking whole campfire or the campsite lit on fire because like everyone was just like raging so hard.
People are probably too busy taking selfies now to to clap.
Yeah. I mean, people are just worn down,
and they're tired.
Yeah. So I don't know. I'm trying to stay optimistic and be that light to like lift people out of that.
For sure.
You just got to push a little harder, I think.
Yeah, and we'll take another tangent, which is one of the things I want to talk about, which is brand. And this is something I spend a lot of time talking about in my own artist mentorship sessions. And in our scene, the word brand for some is a bad word. It's like, oh, you have a brand. You're thinking about your brand. Like, what are you, like Microsoft? You know, you've gone corporate, you're DJ. I don't necessarily think brand has to be a bad word. But I'll start with, what does brand mean to you for an artist, and how important is it for an artist to think about a brand and to develop that?
I mean, the brand is like everything when you're trying to come up with like a theme of what your DJing means to someone. Every successful artist has some kind of brand, you know, and that's, even if you're the most free expression artist ever. Look at like Lady Gaga or something, right? Like her brand was just fucking be the most outlandish dressed, insane person. And that's like what caught on. I think you kind of have to have one nowadays. I don't know how you wouldn't. I mean, even if you're like fucking John Digweed, right? He's like the most expressionless guy.
Yeah.
Out when he DJs, he's literally like just looking down, not dancing. And then like every fucking 25 minutes, he'll like glance up.
Yeah.
and everyone just fucking loses their mind. Like,
Totally.
they're like, we fucking got him to look at us.
Exactly. Cassie's that way too. She'll just be like
Yeah,
this, and then she'll
yeah,
like wink, and people will go like nuts.
yeah.
You know, it's amazing.
And like me and you are like up there just like like fucking going super hard because we're super into it. And like for me, I love DJs that dance. I want to feel in the same groove as them and as the crowd. And so that's always something that I've like I love to fucking dance. And at the end of the day, we're entertainers. So it's like whatever your audience wants to see from you is kind of like you kind of should lean into.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I always you know, my definition, you know, in my sessions of the word brand is, and whether you intentionally choose a brand or not, this can happen implicitly. Even if you say I don't care about my brand, I mean that's actually your brand too. And I always said, you know, one's brand is what does someone think or feel when they hear your name or when they see you. And you know, do they think of someone who's, you know, doing crazy stuff or crazy costumes like Lady Gaga? Do they think of someone who's in touch with their emotions? Do they think of someone who's going to party and do lots of drugs? And I feel like the brand, again, it could be explicit or implicit. It's what people feel when they're associated with your name, and all the things come into it. It's the music that you produce, the music that you play on stage, your stage mannerisms or lack of stage mannerisms on stage. You know, the way your logo looks. You know, what you wear. You know, your tone in social media. These are all the things that kind of define your brand. And we all have a million different dimensions of our personality, and there's just not enough space or time in the world or interest from people to hear all million aspects of your personality. So your brand is what you choose to filter to the world, and it can be authentic, but that's what the brand is, the things that you choose that you want the world to see to form the opinion or to form the feelings that you want them to have.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, like I'm not wearing my signature Mikey Lion hat right now, but I got him on the wall right there. You know, it's like that. Like I've always, yeah. My top hat was like the fucking the brand because like in the beginning I wanted to show everyone that like my roots were in this like full freedom of expression world of like Burning Man, of Desert Hearts, desert partying. And that was like what my top hat was. And actually like at some point I kind of think that it was like, I think that the top hat was like, as I got older and I started going to like Europe, and it just didn't really feel like it translated as much as it did here in the States, and especially on the West Coast. So, I mean, I kind of like rebranded the hat that I was wearing to something that's like a little more accessible, I guess. And yeah, it's like, I don't know. I remember my PR guy was like, he's like, fucking finally. Like, he's like, God, I can't fucking sell this goddamn fucking top hat. But he's like, all right, I can work with this now. He told me. I'm like, great.
I want to come back to we put a pin in it, and I think this is the most interesting thing to talk about. You know, with who I think is tuned in, which is you talk about the full package of artists. So you know, let's say you're a DJ, you're a bedroom DJ, or maybe you're playing a local gig here and there. You have some productions, maybe they haven't been released yet, and you're looking to build a career. You're looking to make some headway. What is what advice would you give to someone who's just kind of getting their feet wet and they want to make a career out of music? That's part one. And then relatedly, part two, what is that full package that you need to succeed in the industry?
Yeah. If you're just starting out, you're probably not making the most top level elite music. And you're probably not the most amazing DJ at the moment. But if you're in it and you want to start getting gigs, the number one thing is you got to put yourself out there. You need to be out at the gigs. You need to be talking to the promoters. You need to be that guy who's like the one who's hitting up all your friends and being like, hey, this party's happening. Let's all fucking cruise to this party. And if the promoters see that you're that person that's bringing like a bunch of fucking people to their parties, and not only like are all your friends then going to be recognizing that like, oh, every time I go to one of the parties with you, like I'm having a good time. Then the promoters at those parties are going to be like, fuck yeah, like, okay, this guy's cool. Like I got my first gigs in San Diego, just like going to parties and handing out CDs that I had of a mix of mine, and seeing them going to like those weekly parties every week and just fucking hanging out. Mm-hmm. That's the move, you know. That's how you start getting those local gigs.
Totally. And this has been, consistently over the Office Hours series. We had Gunita a couple months ago. We had Peter Blick. And, the same question is, how do you break through? It's like, well, you're not going to break through and get gigs by sitting in your bedroom all day. Maybe, I mean, if you're putting together some mind-blowing mixes or mind-blowing productions that are so good that people can't ignore them, awesome. If you're like stimming or something, maybe. But most of us aren't that 0.01% that good at what we do. And I just want to double down what you said. Putting yourself out there is so fundamentally important. And if you're not comfortable putting yourself out there, that could be problematic because you're going to be on stage and you're going to need to participate in social media and put yourself out there in so many other ways all the time.
Mm-hmm. Honestly, it's with that whole thing. It's like practice makes perfect, even when it comes to going out and fucking talking to people. Talking to people when you're out is a fucking skill, it's something that is so important in life to get far. There's extremely small amount of people can make it just by being like a bedroom producer and then blowing up and doing that. It happens to like, I don't think I know anyone personally that's happened to. And that's with the best producers that I know. It's like, if you want to be part of it, you have to play the game. Fucking read some books on it. There's so many books that are, and I think the gold standard is How to Win Friends and Influence People, by Dale Carnegie. It's like from the 1920s, and it's just how to be a good person. It's how to make people around you feel good. And the more that you can practice that, the more that people in this industry will take notice.
Yeah, I agree. And I don't want to discourage anyone who's an introvert. People are sometimes surprised. I'm like a hardcore introvert. Like, extroverts tend to get energized by being around people. Introverts are kind of the opposite. And I'm very, very introverted. And I just want to say that because if you are very introverted, it doesn't mean that you have to be on all the time and out at parties all the time. It just means that maybe you have to work a little bit harder to know how to measure your gas tank a little bit better. Maybe if you spent 20 minutes talking to someone, then you just go off in the bathroom stall for another 5 minutes just to kind of recharge, or you just go to the back of the dance floor, close your eyes, this kind of thing. An introvert doesn't necessarily have to, prevent you from succeeding in a, by definition, social environment. It just means that you need to spend a little time calibrating how to,
absolutely
pace yourself. I can't really tell. You're an extrovert, Mikey, I think, right? No?
I'm in the middle. I'm definitely not all the way outgoing and like love being around people all the time. I 100% need my own space. But what you would fucking figure at Desert Hearts is that I'm a full extrovert because like when I'm outside, I'm on, and I have to be on. I literally, I pretty much play the mayor of Desert Hearts, and like I think I gave 6,000 hugs during the festival. And but then like, yeah, it fucking takes a lot out of me. I have to go back to my RV and go like, just go fucking chill and take that time and spend it very meticulously like focused on like recharging myself to go back out and do it. Yeah, like one of the nights on Friday night, I was like, all right, I'm just gonna take like a little microdose mushrooms And then I'm like, I'll just take like one more little microdose. And I'm like, wow, I'm feeling so good. And I took like one more microdose and then like overdid it. And like literally I'm just like on the dance floor and then like people are just fucking coming up to me like, hey, thanks like so much. And I'm just like, you know? And I had to like fucking sit out for like 4 hours because I was just like, fuck. Like my natural inclination when I'm like vibrating super high is not to go be that fucking guy. Yeah. If you're like Lee Reynolds and you're fucking 3 sheets to the wind and you're like, that is his natural state is like fucking, like he wants to be that guy all the time. And he like just gets off on being around people constantly. And that's not me, but I'm pretty good at it. I think I've just kind of, I've learned to take that role on.
Definitely. I know, particularly at Desert Hearts, some people would say after my set, they're like, were you okay? Like, were you really sad before you went on stage? Like, like, is everything okay? And I'm like, oh, I'm sorry. Like, before I go on stage, I have to like center myself a little bit. And that's why I'm not like talking and hugging everyone because I have to like prep myself to go on stage. And that's just no offense to anyone, but that's just like the introvert in me. Like, I can't run off to one small feedback point. I really miss the artists staying in the RVs at the festival.
I know.
It was hard for me to center myself and just like kind of go off, in a thing. But but
we're gonna that's a kink that we gotta work through for sure.
But anyway, didn't mean to make this but that was just to the point of like I have to censor myself before I go on stage, and I'm not trying to be rude. It's just part of my routine, to
I do the same thing before like any big set. I'm like I either will like kick people out of the green room or go back to my RV, and I always show up like to the stage like right before my set because I'd go in there, I do a little meditation, do my little mantra on just wanting to effectively heal people during this, and that's my goal, and like let the energy flow through me and like to the people, because really at the end of the day, DJing is just full energy control. And the more that you understand that, the more that you can actually lean into it. And, I used to be pretty atheist and like very closed-minded spiritually before I tried DMT, but like now that I don't know, I used to always have this thing in my head where like I knew that I was controlling energy, but I'd be like, dude, stop thinking that. That's like so egotistical of you to think that you're doing anything like that. And then once I like just embraced it and I'm like, yeah, I'm the sole controller of this time slot. And like everyone out here is looking towards my energy to lift them up or make them feel a certain way during this set. Once I started embracing that, it was just like game over, and you can just lean into it.
I think that's actually a learning point that I'm going to take away from this one, which is my perspective has always been that DJing is an energy exchange. I've never looked at it from the point of view that I'm going to go on there and I'm going to like make them feel great. It's always been like, I'm going to throw a couple things out, see how they, see if they give me something back. If they're not feeling that, I'm going to try something else. And a lot of the time it works out really well because we're having this like conversation with one another. Yeah. But a lot of the time, especially these last 6 months, it's like, okay, I'm trying this, it's not working. I'm trying this, it's not working. I'm trying this. And all of a sudden it's like been 1.5 hours and it's just this like mishmash of like random shit that I've played because I've been trying to figure out, sorry, my camera's a little tilted. I've been trying to figure out like how to have that like conversation with the audience. And most of the time it works out well where people say like, oh, like you're sensitive to the dance floor. But a lot of times it just like, some of the times, most of the time recently, it just doesn't work. And so that I think that's a takeaway I'm going to kind of think about, which is, okay, 20 minutes into my set, if I'm trying some things and it's not working, I'm kind of the one who's in charge here. Like, here's how we're going to do it. Like, I'm not going to stand on stage being all frustrated because I'm not feeling it. Like, they're going to look to me kind of to to do
And
that.
you just saying that right now is like making me fucking rethink my thing. I'm like, fuck you, maybe I should like.
No, I mean, it's an exchange of ideas. There's no right or wrong answer yet.
Yeah.
It's just different approaches.
Yeah, and it's all reading the crowd and figuring out what's working. But it's at the end of the day, you are in control of the whole vibe, you know. And it's up to you what you do with it. And yes, you absolutely have to fucking take what you're given and work with that. But yeah, once I just started fucking putting that energy out there and like letting it just flow through me, it was just everything just clicked.
Yeah. I think the addendum that you just added is an important one, which is recognizing your context. Like, when I played after Latmun, and he was ripping it. It was like, tech house, like groovy stuff, bassy stuff, and he was at like 132 BPM, and I was like, okay, I listened to some of the sets. I was not prepared for this, and then it's like I'm not gonna go in there, even if I said I'm gonna control the vibe thing. Let's just say I was fully on that side. I'm not gonna go in there with my like 122 BPM Sunset Dreamy things because I'm gonna lose the floor. So it's kind of like, okay, the way I would, taking your thing, I'm gonna control the vibe, but I'm going to like transition the context, or respect the context that I've been put in to put myself in my sweet spot and graciously hand over the audience,
For sure. And do you ever kind of tailor what you're playing to like who is going to be there as far as like the DJs that's going to be there?
I hate it when I do that.
I know.
I hate it.
And it's like because I like to play like tech house minimal fucking I like to beat up the dance floor a lot, while also playing like really high awesome fucking feel good stuff, but then when I'm playing with like I don't know, say Lee Burge was playing fucking an hour after me or something like that.
That's exactly the example that I'm thinking of in my
head. and like I'm like fuck, like am I playing stuff that he thinks is good, and it shouldn't even fucking matter because like our style of music, our brands are just completely different. But like, yeah, it always throws me off. DJ Harvey played the midnight slot at Desert Hearts, and it's like the most widely polarizing set that we've ever had. Just because like he came on and played like 2 hours of like 80 BPM, fucking like just like crazy music. And a lot of people just wanted to fucking party at that time. And I saw Andreas Hennenberg. He took over after Harvey, and Harvey like did this like super whimsical slow ending, and then like Andreas is just like, all right, you're like, you ready? Press play, and it was just like it's like crazy hectic fucking amazing shit, and like everyone fucking loved it. But yeah, it's hard not to let those thoughts creep in, and again, it's just kind of one of those things where you just have to believe in what you're doing and believe that people are here to see you for what you're able to do.
Totally. And it's not even I mean, it's DJs on the floor, or sometimes if it's just like if a friend comes with me to a gig, or someone, or if I know there's some fans who've been longtime fans, I'm like, well, I've been doing this new thing, should I play for them? So it's easy to get in our head over it, and I agree with your advice. Just try not to, just do what you're gonna do.
It's like DJ Three's at the party.
Yeah. Oh god.
Like if he's just at the party or something, and he's just like, such a ledge, and then
oh god,
you're like, fuck, I'm like just gonna play whatever he thinks is cool. Like, it's hard not to do that.
So let's jump into some questions from the audience. I think your point on Harvey being very polarizing. Atin has a question, or Atin, I'm curious how you assess the success of a given artist set at Desert Hearts. How do you all circle back and say that was good, that was bad, we want this person back? What does that thought process look like?
It's ultimately the feedback, and a lot of times you can just feel the feedback while you're in the crowd. You know when people are fucking losing their minds over something. Harvey was a weird one because he's like the fucking he's considered to be one of the best DJs of all time.
And a DJ's DJ for sure.
And a DJ's DJ plays whatever the fuck he wants, doesn't listen to anyone. I thought that he was going to play a little bit harder given it was like the midnight time slot. A lot of people loved it, and then a lot of people were like, that was the worst set I've ever heard in my life. Yeah, I think I don't know, it just kind of comes back to feedback, right? Mm-hmm. It's the Facebook posts, it's the hashtags on Desert Hearts or whatever, or the party that you were at. You can tell, you can really tell when a DJ's in the zone.
Yeah.
That was something that I've always felt from you when you've been at Desert Hearts playing. We've always like, you've been a resident for 9 years because you have like a very positive effect on people at our festival. And that's why we keep you around. And that's the same thing with when Andreas Henneberg first came out. It was like, he showed up and was just immediately understood the vibe and just like, this is what's happening right now, and took over. And when Kevin Knapp had a similar set at Desert Hearts this year,
I chatted with him about that.
Yeah, like, and he's someone that, I don't know, our festival is a little bit different because we have a mix of headliners, big DJs, and then family DJs that are deserving of good time slots because they're amazing at what they do. Kevin, for sure, his stock just went up. Like, totally. He fucking killed it. And he has, like, his brand when he DJs is, like, the most hilarious, entertaining thing to watch. His fucking wife the whole time is just, like, flashing the crowd, like, titties out. And it was like, what's happening right now? This is fucking awesome. Lubelski's stock goes up. I wish we could have given him a better set time this year. Sometimes it's hard to balance that, you know. It's like there's all the fucking bigger DJs and their agents are like, my artist is not going to play this set time and we're going to walk, you know. And we're like, fuck, that's literally like, it would be the best set time for them and someone else deserves it more, but like, we really want this artist. Yeah.
Let's see if we can squeeze in a couple more questions from the audience. This one's from Aditi. For a novice DJ, is it okay to not have a specific genre yet and still look for gigs? And if you don't have a specific genre, how do you promote yourself and explain to the promoter what kind of DJ you are?
If you don't have like a specific sound, you're kind of like, there's certain parties for that work for that. There's some here in San Diego that I think there's a venue here called Firehouse where it's like people in Pacific Beach that are half the crowd's there for like just to fucking drink and get drunk, and then the other half's there to like fucking specific for the music. And I think in those are kind of like good novice venues, to be honest, if you're still trying to figure out your sound. Something that's like not too serious. I would say once you are getting into like the niche venues and the niche parties, you should be all in on that sound of like something that is I guess like compatible with those venues, because like I would never book anyone on Desert Hearts that is like also a psytrance DJ on the side, you know. I want someone who's like all in, going towards the same common goal as us.
Yeah. You know, my 2 cents on that, and to the person who asked the question, it depends how wide a net you're talking about. If you're talking about like psytrance and deep house, that's one thing, versus like, you know, techno and like tech house, that kind of thing. But, you know, my 2 cents on it is one, if you're trying to promote yourself or pitch yourself to a promoter and you think you can do techno and deep house, have some one or two mixes ready that show that you can do that sound, so as proof to the promoter. We talked about this with Peter Blick a bunch. And two, I think a lot of people would disagree with me, but I still don't know what my sound is. And I think that might be true for many DJs. My sound is something that I think is constantly evolving. So maybe you don't have an idea exactly what your sound is. That might be okay. And just as long as you're able to kind of lean into, as Mikey said, the right niches and the right ways, and having different flavors of what your sound is to promote yourself in that way. So, Mikey, I think you said, do you have time for one or two more questions? You got to go run right now.
I can go till one.
Okay.
I'll just be a few minutes late. It's fine.
Cool. Let's see. This one is as a DJ producer, you have many roles to play unless you have a big team working behind you. Do you have any tips on how to get past the creative blocks outside the confines of music? How do you know what the difference is between a good and bad idea? How do you kind of break out of these things that a lot of these big teams have, for video content?
Yeah.
Blah, blah,
blah. Honestly, you have to kind of figure out how to get in the zone when it comes to creative blocks. You got to learn how to snap out of it and go do something else for a little bit. I go take a walk. I go for a surf or something like that, just to like clear my mind. And like I think doing something very different than what you're doing in that moment can help you get out of it. Meditation. I don't know. People have all kinds of ways to tap into that natural creative spot. And sometimes you just have to push through it. Have you ever heard of the book, The War of Art?
Yeah, I have it on my shelf.
Yeah. If you haven't talked about it in here, The War of Art is like the quintessential book to check out if you're an artist, an entrepreneur, anyone who's on the quest to do their personal fucking goal and like overcome that mental block or the resistance. Cause that's something that I've dealt with my whole life is a shitload of resistance. That is the most logical thing in the world, telling me all the reasons why I shouldn't be doing the thing that I know I need to be doing. And yeah, check that book out. It dissects what the resistance is, how to fucking overcome it, and how to push through it.
Absolutely. And I think the thrust of Nishan's question might have been the things outside of the music. My 2 cents, with the minute we have left, is especially when you're starting out and you don't have a team, you have to do a lot more than music. Like I was making flyers by myself. I'm still editing stuff in Final Cut, doing video stuff. I mean, you have to wear lots of hats. And if you don't want to wear those hats, or if you're stuck on those, Fiverr, just like outsource it, like having, spending a few bucks to get other people to do it for you, finding friends, sitting in a room next to someone who's good at Photoshop, YouTube tutorials. It's just part of the game and you have to do it. Mikey, I know you have to run now, so unfortunately we can't make it to everyone else's questions, but I really appreciate your time. I really appreciate everything you've done for the scene. And I just respect that, since we started, playing the same, since I started playing your festival nine years ago, you've always remained humble, true, and just like true to your ethos. And I just appreciate seeing realness on this amazing journey that you've had. And I'm glad you're a passenger on that trip, man. So
I appreciate that, man. I love you, Atish. You're the boy. Like everyone over here has so much love for you, man. And yeah, like anytime, I would love to do another one of these. These are great.
All right. Well, we have a lot more to talk about, so I'm going to take you up on that maybe in a few months. All right. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in. Mikey has to run. If anyone else has any questions for me, I'm down to hang out for another 10 minutes. If you want to hear my perspective on those questions, I don't want to leave people hanging. But take care, Mikey. See you, buddy.
Later, guys.
All right. So I'm just going to chill here for a couple minutes. I'll go through these questions if they're helpful. Let's see. 10 Desert Hearts, change your life. Awesome. Mikey will take credit for that. Well, it looks like we got through most of the questions. If I missed anything or anyone wants to toss one out, how is Anya Schneider? Oh yeah, did anyone catch Anya's Anya's set. I'm actually curious how hers went. You're welcome to unmute yourself if you just want to hang out for a little while. Let's see. I'm just scrolling up for any more questions.
Sure, she was pretty awesome. She was throwing down the entire time and had everybody just going at like 5 a.m.
Fuck yeah.
My voice is still gone, if you can hear from a week ago.
Yeah, it took me about a week to get my voice back as well. Cool. That's awesome. I'm glad she had a good time. I really enjoyed having her on Discord Demo Day. Sorry?
I was gonna say at the end of her set, I think she wanted to play one more song, and Doc was like, "Nah, I think it's time."
Yeah, he's been doing it long enough to be able to say no to Anya Schneider. Yeah, I read a review about the festival because I was only able to catch so many sets, and one of them said that most of the people had gone to sleep by Anya's set, and I was a little bit sad for her, but the vibe was good for her and everything.
Oh yeah, definitely. The dance floor was still popping. It was definitely a smaller crowd than it was early in the night, but everybody out there was loving it. Cool. And she still had a huge crowd behind her on stage.
Nice.
I'm sure she was still going at 5 a.m. It must have been nice for the people that were there.
Say that once more, Amado? Or Amado?
For the people that were there, if they were there till 5 a.m. watching Anya Schneider, I'm sure they had a great time.
Yeah. Yeah, and that was, I touched on that with Mikey earlier, and I think maybe we disagreed a little bit, but for me, like, some of my greatest gigs, whether it's at a club or a festival or even in, like, my living room when I used to throw after hours, like, it's usually better when there's more people, but I don't necessarily have to have a packed dance floor to have a great magical spiritual experience. I'd rather have a smaller dance floor with all the right people there, like wanting to be there, rather than a packed dance floor with a whole bunch of those like, teeth grinding guys at the front saying like, pump it up, you know what I mean? So yeah, it's quality over quantity for sure. Let's see, any other questions in here? Yeah, chewing shoulder off. I had a in my original Instagram post about Desert Hearts, in my original copy, I said, I've been like struggling with gigs these last 6 months, and I'm just like sick and tired of all those guys grinding their teeth at the front of the dance floor saying to pump it up. Like, I'm just like tired of those idiots. And then my manager's like, "Yo, Atish, man, you gotta tone down this copy. I don't want to dictate what you're saying on social media, but like you might lose some fans if you're calling some of them idiots." I'm like, I don't want those people to be my fans. I want them to unfollow me. I don't want them coming to my gigs. And he's like, "Okay, Atish, just like chill for an hour and then let's revisit." And I removed that from my post. But okay, this is my space now. I can talk about those annoying people as much as I want. Let's see what else. Monty, Atish said, "Atish, we'll love to hear more about your set." I guess I can go into like the analytical of it. I love dissecting sets a ton. So I was playing 6 to 8 p.m. Lotman was before me. He was, pretty serious tech house DJ. Did I participate in the Connect 4 tourney? No, I had to leave early, actually, and I missed the Connect 4 tournament. But back to my set analysis. So Lotman was playing before me, like straight ahead tech house, 132 BPM. And I checked what time is sunset, on Google. And it's like, okay, my set time is 6 to 8 p.m. Sunset's at 7:54 p.m. So maybe I'll get in like 1 or 2 dreamy tracks, like for that emotional release. And then, the first hour 45 will just kind of be like uplifting kind of daytime jams. So I spent like half an hour transitioning out of 132 BPM, and I ended up playing at like 126 or 125 BPM, which is, I can play there, and I did, but I visualized myself playing at like 123 BPM. So it took me like 30 minutes to get out of Latmoon's set, and I'm not hating on him. I mean, he was doing what he's doing. He was doing it well, and it's on me to transition where I wanted. So 30 minutes to transition out of that. I ended up around 125, 126 BPM. And then I look behind me and I'm like, oh shit, there's a mountain, which means sunset technically sets on the ocean horizon at 7:54. But because there's a mountain, sunset actually starts like an hour earlier than I anticipated. So I went into like the dreamy kind of floaty stuff much earlier than I had planned. Luckily, I had a big playlist of sunset, floaty, dreamy music. And I just kind of like leaned into that. And earlier than I expected, and it wasn't a super bouncy, dancey set that I thought it was going to be. And then I got like a little bit self-conscious because I'm going to this like dreamy thing, and because I had all this self-doubt from these previous gigs that weren't that, weren't smashes. No offense, Monty. I played for Monty for one of those gigs. It was a fun party, but the crowd was well, anyway. And then I'm like, okay, so I see like a lot of people on the dance floor like this, and it's like either they're bored as fuck right now because they're like not dancing, or they're so deep in like an emotional zone that they don't need to like bop around and dance. And so I just like leaned into it. I had like 2 beers more than I thought I was gonna have to kind of break the nerves, which I don't usually do. And then what I have this exercise that I do, especially with big dance floors, and I recommend this to any of you who are playing big dance floors. If you're not sure if you're reading the dance floor vibe correctly, or if you're just not sure how they're responding, or if you're just frustrated, I hone in on like 1 or 2 people, and I have a relationship with them that they don't know I have with them. Mario, I think you might be in here. Mario, I was looking at you a ton actually. And I was just enjoying watching you rocking out, and I had this relationship with you, kind of like using you as a guidepost, saying like, okay, like I'm feeling his vibe, he's feeling the vibe. I'm gonna hold on to that. I saw one girl, she was like crying on the dance floor. I'm like, okay, this is like 99% a good cry, not a bad cry, because if she wasn't enjoying it, she would have left. So yeah, once I got into the dreamy thing, I just held on to a couple people to like really, really see how they were responding, and I leaned into that. And then by the end of it, I'm like, okay, like I'm pretty sure this is good. And then talking to people afterwards and stuff, they said that it was good. So that was kind of my overall analysis on how my set was. Transition out of the tech house, sunset was earlier than I expected. I didn't know there was a mountain, and just leaning into a couple smiling faces to have something to hold on to if I'm just not sure what's going on. So Trevor Eden's, are those usually people you know or randos? Both. Mario, I know digitally. So yeah, I kind of know him, and I know his taste a little bit from his productions, and from what we chat. And then the other ones were randos. I actually find it's easier to not focus on friends on the dance floor, because I feel I get a more authentic or objective viewpoint, because my friends, either they're people in the industry who are busy networking and talking to people and they're not going to have those moments, or because they're my friend, they might be biased to like like my wife does this, she's great at it. She'll like, if she sees the dance floor is dead, she'll just start dancing to like inspire other people to dance, and she'll be having a great time because she's my wife. And some of my friends do that too, like they'll support me to help me get over a hump. So I'm like, okay, they're just being nice to me because they're my friends. I need to like look for people who like I don't know and like really, really get a pulse of like, what's going on, kind of thing. So yeah, usually I look for randos. I call that thing your wife does being the dance floor general, and do it all the time when my wife or friends are playing. Yeah, she's totally a dance floor general, and it's great having her on the floor. Cool. All right. Any other thoughts in the chat? Anyone want to chime anything in? Otherwise, I'll just wind it down here.
Got a quick question based on like I also like getting really analytical on my DJ sets, and you said something that's interesting about thinking about the BPM. Something I've realized as I've been playing out a lot more is that I find myself moving to a certain BPM and just like hanging out at that one spot. And I've wondered about, is this just a rut that I'm in because I find something comfortable and I'm just doing it? Are you changing the BPM more dynamically during your set? Like that kind of question.
It depends. Definitely, if it's more than 2 hours, I'm weaving in and out of BPMs because stylistically, I like to, vary it up. Like if I'm gonna go into like Romanian minimal, I'm probably not going to do that at like 121 BPM. I'll probably pick it up to like 127, 128, because for me, I vibe better there. But then if I want to go into some like 2015 deep house, I'm going to like kind of like a chess player. I'm going to think like half an hour ahead, saying I want to get there. I think the crowd wants to go there. How am I going to bring this down like 6 BPM over the next half an hour to an hour? But if it's a 2-hour set, which is like standard length, I usually have like a variance. I mean, assuming it's not like a Lotman situation where I'm left off at 132, I'll usually have a little bit of variance of +1 or -1, but not in a calculated way. It's just like that's kind of what I'm feeling. Like again, I'll see like how much bobbing I see on the dance floor, or do they look tired? If they look tired, I'm like, okay, like let me bring it down a little bit.
Yeah.
But I don't do it in a. I guess I'll do it in a calculated way if I know where I want to be, but I'll also do it on a just feel the vibe kind of thing. Where like I think I could like pick it up or push it down a little bit. You know, one thing that was happening, you know, after I played after Latman, I was at like 126, and I'm like, I like emotionally, or a part of me wanted to bring it down to like 123, 124 because that's my sweet spot. But I'm like, I'm playing 126 and this feels slow. This feels like a very slow 126. So I said, okay, I'm just going to trust my gut here and not bring it down because it feels slow for me. I don't want it to feel slow for others. So that's my roundabout answer. I don't know if I answered your question, but
Yeah,
that's how I
definitely.
think about
That's definitely an interesting perspective. Also, I always feel like I have a real gap around like above 128 to 130. I feel like I don't know. Just I feel like there's less production that happens there. Like above 130 when it's like full on, and then you get into tech house at like 127 and below. But oh well, something to look around on.
I completely agree, actually. Yeah, 129. It's like this like prime number of BPMs. It's just like, you know, there's yeah. I very rarely find myself at 129. I'll find myself at 132. I'll find myself at 127. But 129 is like a weird zone for me as well. So, yeah, go figure. Cool. All right. Anything else from anyone out in the Zoom world? If not, I'm gonna wind it down and go make some music. All right. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. If you're not on my Discord, check out atishmusic.com/Discord. We have a lot more conversation going, and I have a Patreon program at patreon.com/atishmusic if you want to support what I'm doing there. And have a nice Tuesday, everyone.